Thank you all for being here today. My name is Michelle Puzzo, the Executive Director of Your Community Cares. And here we are talking about technology supporting deaf and hard of hearing communities.
Many things have really changed after the ADA has become established. And that has 5 different areas, the ADA. I'm not going to explain the ADA in depth, but that involves court, legal work, hospitals, medical work. They are required to provide access. There is no excuse for that anymore with the ADA. And when we had first gotten the TTY, it has then changed to the TDD, and almost no deaf individuals have a TTY anymore. We use a video relay service, a video phone, and you can put that on your TV or a laptop, and it's really wonderful. It is a person-to-person contact. If you have 2 deaf individuals, you can just sign via video chat. And then when calling individuals who are hearing, you are able to communicate with the interpreter, and you see the interpreter sign, and then the interpreter will speak to the hearing individual. So there's a lot of different options to make phone calls. And could you go on to the next slide? Next slide, Michelle. Yeah. So those are the 5 titles. Oh, one back. One back. There we go. Those are the 5 titles of the ADA, the 5 areas that it covers: places of employment, government, state and local, public, and telecommunications, the FCC. All of those are covered under the ADA. And if somebody is not following them, then you're able to file a complaint regarding accessibility. And you're able to then explain to people that you have the right to have communication access through the ADA. And again, most often this is important for the medical field, for doctor's appointments. Some people will write back and forth, but I always ask when I'm providing trainings that I ask if everybody in this country is able to read, and he will respond with the answer of no, not everybody is able to read. And those people who are not able to read are often still able to hear. But if you can't hear and you are not able to read, then what is your backup? You need to have an interpreter. And that's where ASL interpreters come in. And when I start discussing that during trainings, it helps people really start to understand about the deaf, deafblind, and hard of hearing individuals who are there, that it is not the decision of the medical professional, it's the decision of the deaf consumer, of anyone who is mentioning that they need these accommodations for the medical office. And for deafblind individuals, video relay interpreting is not accessible. They need to be able to have an in-person interpreter using tactile sign. And there are 2 different methods. Pro-tactile communication has more information about what's going on. For example, if you have an audience, they'll be able to let you know that people are laughing in the audience or people have left the room. They add additional information that's not seen. And then tactile ASL is for deafblind individuals. Some deafblind individuals don't feel comfortable using pro-tactile. That's abbreviated to PT. It depends on what their preference for communication is, and the others will then use tactile sign. You can go on to the next slide. Michelle had already covered a lot of this. There are so many different routes to use. And for me, my house is wired in. I've got the alarm system for the doorbell, that if a friend comes to visit, they can ring the doorbell, and if the lights are on, they will turn off. We've got about, let me think, 4. We've got 4 lights, 5 lights that are able to flash throughout the house when somebody rings the doorbell. So then I know that somebody is outside. And if the lights are currently off, then they'll actually turn on. So it's able to work in either situation, which is really wonderful. There's so much new technology that you're able to use. They have some that are wireless now that you can just attach to the wall. I'd had one that was wired, as well as the fire alarm lights that is able to have lights flashing throughout all 3 floors of the house. It can work in apartments. It's really, there's so many great technological advances. We also have a strobe light for carbon monoxide, really, really important alert systems to have. And then in regards to TVs, we have Sorensen, which is a free company. You can download the app. You do need to have strong Wi-Fi to use it. And you can use that for Sorensen, Purple, Convo, many different video relay service companies. That is fantastic. You're able to quickly make a call a restaurant, set up an appointment, or call the doctor's office to set up an appointment. And Sorensen has a new system, which when we use the phone, when we use a video phone to make a phone call, when you have that one-on-one communication, if I call somebody who is a hearing individual, they will not be able to see me. They will hear the interpreter and the interpreter will sign to me. But now they have something called Wello that when you download that app through Sorensen, that use speech to text. There are still some problems that come up with speech to text. It's not always perfect. Like, for example, if I am using a speech to text to see captions, if it is in a large group of individuals with a lot of noise or a noisy restaurant and there are people speaking nearby, it's not able to capture all of the words because of the overlapping speech. So that's something that still needs to be further developed, but there's new technology coming up consistently. And then with movie theaters, like Janine had already mentioned, that back in 2000, we started to get captions, and movie theaters, there are 10 different movies happening in one movie theater. Where you were not able to get captions because the film itself had open captions already established in the film. So you would have to call and make an appointment to get the captions for a movie that you wanted to see. Where now they have rear view. That is really uncomfortable for a lot of deaf people to use. It's captioning through glasses. Some people might like it, but it really depends on each individual. For example, some deaf people prefer to use the caption glasses and some deaf people do not want to use them. But it really depends on everyone of their communication preferences. We're all different. And now in a restaurant or a public place, if there is a TV screen in the restaurant, there's supposed to be at least one television that has closed captioning on. That is required for every restaurant to have. If they have a television, they must have closed captions. So that is something required for restaurants. And we can go on to the next slide. We had really discussed a lot of this already, but for Zoom meetings, for example, last night I had a large group that was partially in person and partially on Zoom. We're able to sign and communicate. And right now we're on Zoom. We have the interpreters here as well as captions. There's a lot of different ways to make it accessible. And now talking about accessibility in healthcare, we really have a long way to go. VRI is often used in hospitals and it's not effective for everyone. The hospital often has weak Wi-Fi, which is a problem. So it's important to always call and make sure they have strong Wi-Fi to be able to have a good connection with the interpreters. Some hospitals also only have one VRI device where there could be patients who are speaking different languages as well as deaf individuals who need to use VRI. VRI also isn't effective for some deaf individuals because the interpreter is maybe from another state and isn't local. Maybe they're from Alabama, and people often think that we all sign the same, but there are quite a few different signs that vary between states. For example, the sign birthday. It could be like this, or this, or this. There are a few different signs all over the country for the word birthday. There's not one specific standard sign. And some deaf people don't know the spelling of town names. And if the interpreter is from Alabama, they're not going to know what the sign is for Hartford. And this is our sign, Hartford. It's an H that bounces. And if the interpreter is from Alabama, they're not going to know that this sign means Hartford. So it becomes difficult in a hospital setting. And a lot of hospitals think that VRI is the quick solution, but it isn't. And deafblind individuals also aren't able to use VRI in hospital settings or VRI period. So they need to have an in-person interpreter. And that's why I'm involved on working with the community and the legislation to be able to have the accommodations accurately match our needs. We've already explained quite a bit about technology, that it isn't always perfect. And with the deafblind community, again, they have their own preferences. We'll have trainings for interpreters, for the community, and for the deafblind community to make sure that we're all aligned and that we're able to work together. And there are a lot of buildings like the American School for the Deaf, where they have a new school that have hired deaf architects, and they're able to then have the deaf perspective for the colors and lighting in the building. If you're talking in front of a window, you're not able to see very clearly with the sun shining through. So today we have all of that is able to be provided for us for a variety of different situations. Like I had told my local police station that we are a deaf family living here, and that if there's an emergency or something happens, they will know exactly what to do. And a few years ago, we had a state trooper who was hit by a car on the highway, and it was near my house. So they got a call that they had sent out that there was an emergency, do not drive in that area, which was really nice. Back then, we would have no way of knowing that. We would drive into the area and then end up getting stuck. But we are able to get these alerts now in many different ways, which is really awesome. And then I guess I covered everything. Thank you. Oh, yes, I forgot. When there's a political announcement or anything on the television, you're able to use picture in picture, where the interpreter is able to be on screen during an emergency. For example, if there was a hurricane or if there was a water main break and there's no interpreter there, then the deaf community has no way of knowing not to drink the water or won't understand why the water has been shut down, and will have to contact the emergency group. So each town needs to be educated that they could reach out to interpreters and have them on screen with the emergency announcements. And now the problem is with nationwide news, we have the National Association of the Deaf. They had sued the president's office for not providing interpreters, and we were able to win the case. However, the president has now appealed, and we have to continue fighting. So this is a daily fight to be able to fight for our rights with many things. I had seen with Mexico that they had picture in picture for their president's announcement, meaning that there's an interpreter on the small corner of the screen. That's something that we need to address and we need to continue fighting for. Okay. And my contact information here. I'm the president of CID. We meet 4 times a year. We have a national conference. We have workshops and trainings. We'll have a forum on March 14th at American School for the Deaf. And if you look on our website, we have more information there. Thank you for taking the time to join us today.
Thank you very much, Janine and Louisa, for this great information. I now want to open up to any questions that any might have in the audience. You can unmute yourself and you can ask any questions, or if you're here and you'd like to share some information that wasn't covered and you might be here wanting to share a little bit, feel free to jump into the presentation now. I see a lot of chatter going on in the chat box, so that's wonderful.
Hey, Michelle, can you hear me?
Yes.
This is Mary Lynn Marsh. I work for the Guide Dog Foundation for the Blind on Long Island. And thanks for a fantastic presentation. This was really interesting. I'm here because I'm interested in knowing what accommodations we might be able to make in our facility, both in a new building that is still in the final design stages, and also some modifications or retrofitting that we could make to our student residents. We have new guide dog and service dog handlers come stay with us and the student residents for a 2-week period of time. And we also would like to outfit that facility to make it as accessible as possible to people who are deaf and hard of hearing. So I have a lot of information from this presentation about the technologies that are available. I think what we need is a consultant of some sort, perhaps to come and look at our facility and advise us on what would be our best options and how to cost it out. Can any of you help me out, start me in a direction on that?
Yes, I can. If I have your email, I can send you 2 sources of companies that can install hearing loops. One of them is less expensive, and the hearing loops are portable. They're like $300 for 500 square feet, and over 2,000 square feet would cost a little bit more. There's also a great company based in Massachusetts, New England Hearing Loop, Shanahan Sound, that installs permanent loops. They've been around for a long time.
Fantastic.
Great. Awesome. We also have Christine from Helen Keller that wants to jump in.
I saw that. Yeah.
Yes.
Wonderful.
Oh, this is Louisa. Hi. 1 second. With the first question there regarding your facility, there's the universal design, and that has a lot of information that I'll be able to share with you. That's how buildings at the American School for the Deaf, or at any school for the deaf in the country, or any living place for deaf individuals or deafblind individuals, they use that universal design. And it's phenomenal. It has the appropriate lighting and windows of how to see each other in large rooms. There's a lot of deaf-friendly spaces. And many places are starting to add the strobe lights in bathrooms for public areas, making a lot more of the space accessible. Also for wheelchair users. And there are some deaf individuals that are also wheelchair users. It really is a great design.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Christine, go ahead.
Okay. Hi, Christine Tilford. We're located on Sands Point. Like, we're probably pretty close. We're North Shore of Long Island, and we're a facility that provides rehab services specifically to individuals with dual sensory loss or deaf blind. So I left my email address in the chat. Please reach out and I'll connect you to our accessibility coordinators out there. Also, just side note, universal design is the bane of some deafblind people's existences. Especially at Gallaudet University with the open space design. If you're using a white cane, traveling in open space is very difficult. So universal design has its wonderful plus, but some negatives involved with that too.
Absolutely.
Just putting that out there. Thank you. I'll disappear now.
Thank you. And we also have Harry with his hand up.
Hi, thank you for the opportunity to join in. I'm in, I guess I have down in Lincoln, Nebraska. So just joined a group in Maine last night, that was kind of also talking about tech. So this is a bit more information. So I appreciate that. Thank you, particularly with more on the deaf, blind, and so forth. But we just started a hearing support group here in Lincoln last November, so we were slowly moving with presentations. But I put a question in the chat, but I'll just ask it here real quick. It's regarding the one about restaurants having to have a TV, at least one TV with a caption. And I think Janine had replied that she thought it was maybe based on number of seats, sitting capacity, but is there something specific in ADA that one could go find? I'm not aware of that. I'm more aware of the assisted listening aspects of the ADA.
Yeah. I think you're correct. It depends.
On the seating capacity.
Most restaurants, for example, a restaurant that has a bar that has a whole room of TVs, they're going to be large enough where they should have at least one TV with captions on. And sometimes I've walked into a restaurant myself and I see that there's nothing there, and then I approach the manager and ask them to put the captions on. Really, any small or large restaurant, if it's a big restaurant though, where they have TVs on all the time, they should have at least one. But small restaurants, you can often go in and ask the manager to turn on captions. But they are not necessarily required to have them on all the time if it's a small restaurant. But it's really nice to leave the captions on all the time for people who are in the bar and are not able to hear each other with all of the noise. You have the captions then right there.
Right. Yeah.
And especially for sports. I'm still working with the University of Connecticut to make sure that they have captions on for the gamble. That's where the sports are at the University of Connecticut. The gamble. And the University of Connecticut games, I've gone to many basketball games there, and they do now have captions, but it's not 100% perfect. So that's something that we're still working on.
Yeah.
Being able to have that for public arenas with sporting events. And that's something that we need to continue educating the community about.
Right.
But I do really wish that they were able to have interpreters there as well to see some signing, but the captions are better than nothing for some of us.
So somewhere in ADA, in the title related to communication, we'll have information on the closed captioning for TVs. Do you know?
It's not exactly listed. The ADA has some weaknesses now. And for example, like I had mentioned before with doctors' offices, doctors often decide what they think is best for them, but it has to be what's best for the patient in terms of communication and following what communication mode that they want. But those details aren't necessarily listed in the ADA. So we need the deaf community to be able to work together and work with the legislation. And the past year, we've had many bills that we have proposed, and they continuously are watered down. About 2 years ago, we had a meeting with the Speaker of the House here in Connecticut, and we had a meeting to discuss about them closing down our services in 2016.
Oh,
And they had announced that they should have listened to the deaf community back at that time. And now they are calling me and asking me, okay, what do you think about this? Or that's something that they had never asked before. They never asked the community what we needed. They had never asked any deaf-blind, hard of hearing, or individuals with hearing loss, where the lawmakers had been previously making all of the decisions. And we said, stop, you need to ask us what we want.
great.
And so we've been getting involved with many things.
Excuse
That's-
me,
that's
about
great.
the
Okay.
closed captioning requirement for televisions. It's required by the ADA and the FCC since 1990. Any TV sets larger than 13 inches have to have built-in decoders to convert audio to text.
Okay, thank you so much. We only have a
Thank you.
couple more minutes.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, everybody. I saw Christine's hand. I know the interpreters have to get going.
No,
Christine, did you still want to?
that was an error. Thank
Okay,
you anyway.
okay. Okay,
Doreen has a hand up as well.
last thought, Doreen.
And this may not relate to all of your services that you've been mentioning, but I do want you to be aware that, independent churches, that I am a churchgoer, and sometimes there are no interpreters there as well. And so I hope there would be other options. I know that there were some theater options that were mentioned, and I was wondering if there were some ways that could be connected to computers and so on. So what options there might be for that as well. So again, I'm not sure if that's something that you've had experience with, but these churches are not, it's not a requirement because they're not a state entity. They're not legally bound to the American with Disability Act, but unfortunately the interpreters are unreliable. They may be out sick or not show up, and they're voluntary. So there's not many other choices. So I was curious to know.
Doreen, you're absolutely right about the churches. We did a study of accessible locations in Connecticut a couple of years ago. Churches are really bad because of their limited number of people and function as a religious entity. They're not required to follow the ADA. If they have accessibility, it's if they're willing to do it. I have personally worked with 3 churches to encourage them to install hearing loops, and it's really been helpful. It doesn't cost them that much, and they just do it in the room where the services are, and they have a sign showing people that there's a hearing loop there.